Hey everyone, thank you for coming to the workshop. Hopefully there might be a few people coming in and out of the workshop. I think we were expecting like 30 people. So I'm just gonna get right to it. I'm gonna share my screen. Cool. Just want to make sure everyone can see the screen. Oh, Fiona asked a question. You like the painting? Yeah, actually, I did the painting. Just a little fun thing that I did. Cool. All right, so today's workshop, we're talking about data visualization and reporting automation in Qlik Sense. So I want to make this as interactive as possible. I think today's workshop's a little bit smaller, so hopefully we can get more questions in. So some ground rules. Please mute your microphone while you're on the session. Use the chat function for questions and answers, and be respectful. Everyone's just trying to learn today. So in terms of agenda, we'll do a quick introduction to the course. We'll do a recap on art and science of data visualization. And then we'll talk about different types and how and when you should use different types of data visualization. And then we'll go into right into Qlik Sense. So walking through a dashboarding tool such as Qlik Sense. And I'm hoping, I think a lot of the concepts you'll learn today, especially in the first half, is very translatable to other data visualization tools. But let me know if you're particularly interested in doing like a Tableau versus a Power BI workshop. We can certainly do those. The concept generally is pretty similar. So for those of you on the call who don't know me that well, my name's Eric. I run Advanced Analytics and Research Lab. We're analytics services and solutions company. A little bit of background. So I did 3 degrees at Western/Ivy Business School. I did my business degree, my economics degree, and my master's in analytics. I've done a lot of different projects in analytics consulting. I think in the past 4 or 5 years, I've probably done more than 50 projects. I've been teaching statistics, analytics, and economics for a good part of, I think, 13 years now. So certainly for this particular session, I've taught probably more than 10 times. A little bit more fun stuff about me. I think I should put some more new interesting facts. But on the top left there's me making coffee in Italy. I learned how to make latte art from the person who invented latte art. In the middle there is me volunteering at Dominican Republic. On the right there's a painting. Someone also pointed out I have a painting behind me as well. Bottom left, it's me with my dream come true at the dinosaur vault at the Royal Ontario Museum. Super cool. That's the skeleton of Zool. It's the most complete ankylosaurus on Earth at the ROM. Bottom right there, that's me at a motorcycle racing course. So a little bit about AARL, Advanced Analytics and Research Lab. So we are a analytics solutions, consulting services, and education company. And our mission is to be the fastest and easiest way for organizations to gain full analytical capabilities. For the price of one analyst, you'll get an entire specialized team. Our education mission really is to provide education that's practical enough for anybody to start using analytics in their day-to-day. And we teach, hopefully, the fundamentals and the concepts of all the popular tools so that you can actually start leveraging, for example, in this case, Qlik Sense tomorrow when you go to your job. So for fall courses, we've done intermediate Excel, we've done foundational data science. Right now we're doing Qlik Sense. I think next Tuesday night we're going to do introduction to R with statistics. And then we have a few other upcoming ones. Just to know, all the profits for these are donated to charities, and we, as you know, we try to keep these as low cost as possible so that everybody can join. So analytics as a toolbox, just want to make a note here that analytics is a problem-solving framework, and you use facts and data. Of course, there's a lot more kind of technology and theoretical things you can learn about it, but generally analytics is just solving problems with facts and data. So hopefully is that we give you little frameworks or the toolbox, and then you can problem solve with data. But then inside your toolbox, you got to start adding new tools in. Like you got to add a hammer, you got to add a screwdriver. So with different types of data and different types of problems, there's different tools you can use to solve them. So Excel is a really good tool. Qlik is a good tool. R is a good tool, but they all solve very specific problems. So we're here to give you as much as we can on the foundations so that you can go and solve problems and actually solve problems on your own, right? So an analogy I like to use here, it's like learning how to cook. If you know how to cut, the different categories of food, you know how to heat food up and what it does to food when you fry versus steam versus put in the oven, then once you have the foundations, it's pretty easy to learn a new recipe or solve a new food challenge. So there will be a certificate available. You can add the certificate to LinkedIn. We'll show you how in an email that follows this class. So going right into it, data visualization, the theory portion. So we want to help you take your data visualization to the next level. Last week, we talked a little bit about art and science of data visualization, and we want to help you communicate compelling stories with data visualization. So one of the things we talked about last class is what are the main components of telling a compelling story with data, right? So first off, you have to start with the question, and then you add kind of your visual, which is some sort of graph derived from data, and you got to add context. So how does the data correlate to the questions, and what are some other contextual background you should be showing? And then talk about so what? Why are you showing the graph, and how is this useful to solve the problem? So if you have all those components, then you can tell a pretty compelling story. So one important thing that I always stress, always ask so what or why, and always go at least 1 or 2 levels deeper, right? So every time you present a fact in a presentation or in a meeting, always talk about so what, right? Once you get through the first level, usually when people present facts, they kind of just stop there, and it's like, okay, why are you telling the information? Why are you telling the fact, right? So you go one level, okay, here's why I'm telling you the fact. But then you can go another level, and the more level you can go in, the more intelligent you're getting on the data and the problem you're trying to solve. So always ask at least 2 or 3 levels of so what. Usually what we say is that after 5 levels of so what, you've more or less have flushed out all the main components of the idea or problem you're trying to solve. And right, going from presenting facts to presenting intelligence upgrades you from a passive observer to a thinker. And that applies to a lot of different things, I think philosophically as well. If you're walking down the street, if you're just looking at all the problems around you versus you thinking about, okay, how can you solve the problem? And why does this problem exist? That really changes you from an observer to a thinker. We talked about this last time as well, golden rules of good information design from Alberto Cairo. So the golden rules of good information design is based off of good quality data. They attract the reader's attention. They don't frustrate the reader, and they don't mislead the reader. So going into more foundational basics, there's the 3 main type of graphs. So anytime you see data, you need to visualize it. Generally, you can try to say there's these 3 kind of main graphs. Really, there's one graph that trumps it all, which is a bar graph. 95% of the time, your data can be visualized using a bar graph. And most of the time, it's going to be effective and efficient. For a line graph, you can use it to show show data across time. And then for pie graph, it shows proportion. We talked about last class as well that pie graph is actually not the greatest because people tend to use it incorrectly. And generally, you can show a little bit better in using a bar chart. Going a little bit more advanced, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in today's class, showing comparison, showing causality, showing multivariable data, integrating more relevant evidence, better documentation, and then content and context, right? So what puts you in as from an okay data visualizer to an outstanding data visualizer? It's the more advanced stuff. So flipping gears to a little bit more about practicality. So right now, what's in the market for dashboarding? So there's three main products in Canada, software-wise, or cloud application, depending on how you look at it. All three are pretty good. Some are better than others at very specific things. So we have Tableau, Power BI by Microsoft, and Qlik Sense. Some other ones, Domo, they're a little bit newer. I know some of the more technologically advanced companies uses that. Cognos, so it's off of Cubes from IBM, and I know also a couple of kind of older / more institutional organizations uses Cognos, but you don't hear it too much. Excel and R, of course. So for dashboarding, Excel, you can actually build a dashboard in Excel that's interactive. And you can also build dashboard that's interactive in Shiny. So what makes a dashboard? Essentially, and we'll talk about some key components a little bit later as well, but if you could imagine, usually when we talk about dashboard, the first thing you can probably think of is like those little gauges in your car. So a dashboard inside a car gives you all the key information you need in real time that helps you make the decision for driving, right? So you'll be driving and then you can see your speedometer, you can see how fast you're going, you can see how much gas you have, and then you can see little alerts that pops up if you don't have enough windshield fluids or if there's some problems with your engine or tires and things like that. So a dashboard is supposed to present a user with relevant information so that they can make decisions. And that's similar to reporting, but you can kind of think of reporting as the next generation of dashboarding. So dashboard generally is more real-time, more automated, more structured, and more interactive. Here's the Magic Quadrant from Gartner. This one is slightly outdated. I haven't really seen the newer ones. They publish it, I think, every year. I'm not sure if the 2021 is out yet, but essentially they have these players in software specifically for business intelligence platforms. So business intelligence platform generally people think of as dashboards, and you can see the top leaders there, Tableau, Qlik, and then Microsoft, which is Power BI. Sense, there's good ones. MicroStrategy, there's good ones. SAP, TIBCO. So there's a bunch of different ones. So it really depends on what the specific use cases are, and pricing and cost obviously is a big factor, as well as what kind of backend systems you have, whether it's off of an enterprise database, enterprise resource planning systems, or you have streaming data from digital APIs and things like that. A little bit about the three different BI tools. So just to keep in mind, I'm using BI, business intelligence, and dashboarding a little bit more interchangeably for this session. So Tableau, I would say probably the most popular dashboarding tool in Canada. They do a lot better advertising. Starting in 2003, they're easy to use, drag and drop for non-technical users, easy to read flat files. So flat files, just for your purpose, it's a table with rows and columns, really fast to scale. So Tableau, there's multiple versions you can get. There's the back end integration and data manipulation is not as good as Tableau's. There's an actual, sorry, not as good as Qlik Sense. There's a separate software you can get with Tableau called Tableau Prep that does more of the backend data manipulation. And in terms of product, they obviously have a bunch of different things. They have desktop, prep, server, online, public. You can actually get, I think, the public one for free. In terms of pricing, so generally you're looking at the kind of the all-encompassing one, which is $70. So that one you can build a dashboard. The viewer pretty much only allows people to interact and view the dashboard, and then the Explorer is like kind of the in-between. Power BI. So Power BI is, out of the three, is the newest kid on the block. Obviously not really a kid because it's built by Microsoft. So it used to be an Excel add-on back in 2013, and I think it's related to Power Query, if you guys know that tool. And then it was released to the general public in 2015. Power BI, I would say, there's a huge surge of interest for Power BI, because their cost is actually quite low, but also if your organization has Microsoft 365, the license actually comes with that. At least there's the desktop version, I think, comes with it. There is different ones, but it integrates obviously well with backend of Microsoft backend systems like Azure. In terms of products, so Power BI Desktop, that's the main one. There's Power BI Pro, allows for sharing. Power BI Premium, which is more like content creators, mobile, embedded, report server, and a bunch of different ones depending on what again, it's mostly on your need and what your backend looks like. So Power BI Desktop is free. Pro is $12.20. These are in Canadian dollars, and then Premium, that's more for enterprise use. And then finally, we have Qlik. It's a personal favorite, and I don't get commission for saying that. I'm in no way affiliated with any of these software. So Qlik started back in 1993, and a lot of different organizations uses Qlik. The older tool is called Qlik View, and they have a really good backend data manipulation similar to SQL. They have some internal management issues, so they don't actually do as much advertisements in Canada compared to the other two, so you don't see as much. As far as I know, there is actually only a handful of Qlik like consultancies all around Canada, but not to say there are definitely a lot of companies that uses Qlik. 2017, there was a major revamp, and then there was another major revamp in 2019 that changes the business model. And then there's also an open source place called Qlik Branch where people build, I think these are Node.js special data visualization that you can actually download and then load onto your Qlik. In terms of product, they have Qlik View, which I mentioned is older, but quite a few organizations have this. Qlik Sense is new. Qlik Sense Business, I think it's called now. And then there's Qlik Sense Cloud, which is the cloud version we'll talk about today. In terms of pricing, so this was updated this year. So Qlik Sense Business, about $30 per user per month. And other reasons I like Qlik. So Qlik has a really cool proprietary associative engine that helps maps relationship between data automatically. And they also have a lot of cool like other data science products that's available to add in as a plugin to on top of your Qlik Sense dashboard. It has really good data automation capabilities, has a lot of data connectors for databases, allows for open source extension, has a data market, and it has a whole ecosystem for other development platforms. So we'll talk about this a little bit, just a little bit today, but a really important part of dashboarding is actually the backend. So in the backend, there is this thing called joining and linking data. And one of the best thing about dashboard is that it allows you to link two or more data sets together. So if you have let's say you have two Excel sheets, Qlik actually if you load both of them into Qlik, Qlik will automatically recognize the link between the two data sets and do that for you. And then there's different kind of joins, just like in SQL. So inner join, left join, right join, and outer join. So just a quick example on linking for people on the call who are non-technical. So let's say you have a table of all your customers. So let's say Excel sheet. Each row is a new customer and their name and their email address. And then you have another table or another Excel sheet with the transactions. Each transaction obviously will be linked to a customer, but then each customer can also have multiple transactions. So if you take those two tables together in Excel, it's fairly difficult to try to join them together. You can try to use Power Query to do that, and there's a couple of other tools you can kind of get around it. But in all these dashboarding tools, you can load both of them into the system, and then you can join them together very easily. In this case, let's say both of these tables will have a customer ID, then you can just join them together using that key. So tips on which visualization to use. It's really good to try to understand kind of broadly what all the charts can do for you, which we'll do that today. Try to practice on each one of those charts. Have a secret weapon for each type of situation and type of data, which I'll talk about in a bit. And try to remember the difference between kind of measures and dimensions, right? So measures is the aggregation metric. So a measure could be an average, a sum, a count, max, or min. So those are your 5 major operators for a dashboard. And then the dimension is the thing you're breaking down the data by. So if you have if you have transactions information, one dimension could be date, right? So what are all the transactions January versus February? But another dimension could be, okay, what are the type of transactions? If it's a grocery store, what are the transactions that's fruits versus dairy versus meat and things like that. So visualizing cross-section data. So a cross-section data set is essentially a data set that's a snapshot in time. So it usually looks like a flat table where each row is a different item, and then each column is a different variable or KPI. So you could have, for example, a snapshot of inventory of a grocery store. So each row would be a different type of item. So row 1 could be apple, row 2 could be oranges. And then on the columns, you can have number of apples as of October 6, 2020. So with cross-sectional data, I almost always start with a bar chart because you can use bar chart to split down between dimensions. But then you can also use pie chart, bubble chart, tree maps for proportions. I would say be careful on whether you're using an average, sum, or a count, because that shows very different informations. And again, I very often see users misusing those different aggregation measures. Time series data. So time series data, usually just a data that shows a specific metrics across time. Line chart is usually your best bet for that, but bar chart oftentimes shows the data quite well too. And then potentially you might be able to add in kind of new things such as predictions, ways to break down the line chart through different categories, ways to add in other things like colors and things like that. So with time series data, obviously time is a big thing. Time is one of the hardest thing we have to deal with as a data scientist. First off, there's pretty much an infinite amount of ways to write time. The Canadian government and in Canada generally recommends the ISO 8601 format, which is year, month, date. Sorry, year, month, date. But between, I think, across all of Canada, I've seen zero consistency with all the systems. And on the left here, you can actually, there's an entire Wikipedia page about date formatting. And you can see Canada is actually one of the only countries in the world that accepts all date formatting. So most of the time you have Asia and Europe that uses the date, month, year, which I think makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're starting with the lowest the lowest denominator, which is day, and then month and a year, it gets bigger. Whereas in the US, they use month, day, year, which is like month first and then day and then year. It makes a lot of sense, I think, from a language perspective, because you'll say like January 1st. People don't usually say like 1 January 2020, right? But it makes obviously our job a huge headache sometimes. Financial data. Generally, financial data within the organization is treated a little bit differently than all the other data. Excuse me. So all financial data, every organization has financial data, and usually the accounting system and financial metrics used for analytics. But essentially, you can break down things by revenue, costs, margins, categories, geographies, customers. Those are kind of all the big ones. And you look at budgeting versus variances, pro forma statements. Pro forma is just a fancy way of saying predictions. And then there's four main type of kind of ratios: leverage, profitability, efficiency, and liquidity. And you're going a little bit deeper. So standard deviation or spread analysis, you're looking at box plot or histograms. So you're looking at distributions of the data. And then once you want to get into more details, you're using things like tables, pivot tables, heat maps. And then to show you relationship, generally you're using scatter plot. And then, a lot of times you see people like will draw a line in the middle. Showing relationship, there's other ones: stack bar charts, stack line charts, combo charts, scatter plots, using trend lines I talk about. So that is kind of the theory portion, and we'll jump right into Qlik. Just want to check to see if there are any questions. I'm just going to pull up my Qlik. Great. Okay, just want to see if you can see my screen. Awesome. Okay, so Qlik. So what's a dashboard for? Going a little bit deeper. So there's kind of three main uses of dashboards. You can run your own analysis. So when you get a data set, you can actually use a dashboard to analyze the data. It's really good for what we call EDA, which is exploratory data analysis. Some people also call it discovery analytics, but generally when you first get a data set, you just want to understand what's in the data. So you would generally plot out all the different KPIs and variables. You would try to see what the ratios between the variables are, and trying to see what the upper and lower bounds are, and things like that. A dashboard is really easy to make visualization. You can present summary information from analysis in a dashboard format, and you can create interactive predictive models in dashboard. So that last piece, actually a little bit harder to do in a dashboard, but you could do it. Generally, if you're starting to build predictive models, you'll go into like R or Python or SAS and things like that. Analysis for non-technical users. So a lot of times, I think the primary use of a dashboard is analysis for non-technical users. And this is really kind of what all these dashboards are pushing for, which is self-serve analytics for non-technical users. Essentially, you can load in the data set and then very easily through the interface interact with the data. Sometimes you'll have an analyst actually kind of build the dashboard for you so that you can look at the data. And that's more of a reporting / analysis use. And then the final point here, reporting for clients. So usually what we say is that there's a team that builds the dashboard, and then there's like the consumer of dashboards. So the consumer are usually just like managers or executives that's checking, are their operations going well? How's their revenue looking at? Are we meeting budgets and things like that? That last part, this was kind of cool. So I was in San Francisco, and there was a tech startup. I think it was like Dropbox or something, and they have a dashboard in every room. They have a big TV in every room that has a Qlik Sense dashboard, and it's live, and it shows how many users they have on all their platforms. And then they also have like transactions and things like that on the TV. So it's kind of cool. You can see like all the employees are able to see key metrics of the company in real time. So how do you approach building a dashboard? Here's my framework for visualization and reporting. So there's really two main things. One is you can start with the audience and the question or the challenges. So what do they already have and what do they want to have? What is useful to show? And then there's another way, which is data first. So what data is available? What can we show? So it's like trying to close the gap between number one, which is what we want, and then number two is what we have. Then you consolidate a finding and try to find the balance between the two. I think the next revolution of data science and analytics is going to be a lot of embedded BI. A lot of people are connecting very powerful predictive engines and optimizations engines in R and Python that they built into dashboards. And there's ways to kind of integrate Python and R into Qlik, Tableau, Power BI. So jumping right into it, I have all of these in slide format, but I will actually show you live. It's kind of like a demo. So let me pull that up. It's gonna log into my Qlik. So when you sign up for Qlik on the free trial, they'll actually give you a so I'm just looking at, they'll actually give you your own site. So ours is called AARL Education. And I'm just gonna show you the demo on it. There we go, okay. Cool. So when you log into Qlik, this is what they call the hub. There is a different space. So there's a personal space and then there's a share space. And the share space is where you can share reporting. You can invite other users to join your space and then they can see all the applications within it. And you can give them permission to view or edit and things like that. Each one of these squares is called an application, and you can create your own application. You can go and look at your own application. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new application. So we're going to go new application, give it a name, Eric teaching October 6. And I'll have it in the personal space, give all this description. Qlik workshop. Great. Cool. So then what happens is you'll create this application. You can then go into the application. And the first thing you'll do if there's no data in your application or if it's brand new, then you'll ask you to add some data. So I'm just going to add the data through this data adding screen here. And you can see here actually you can drop a file. Usually a flat file is good. Flat file meaning rows and columns. So each row is a new data set and then each column is a variable. This is also what we call the tidy format. But then you can see here, you can actually join in a lot of other data sets. The big ones, I think Google Analytics, so website analytics. You can actually, if you have Google Sheets that's live, you can put data in there. You can pull directly and you can reload it in real time. There's Facebook Insights, Google BigQuery, Salesforce data, Snowflake, Twitter. So a bunch of different things you can actually have in there. For some of our clients, we actually help them pull in their marketing data, so Facebook and their Google Analytics into a dashboard so that they can see their marketing data in real time. And so these are just the main ones. They actually have a ton of other ones you can use. So I sent everybody the data set, which is the HR data set. So I'm just going to use the core data set. So I'm just going to open it here so you can see how it looks like. So just a little bit of background. This is a fake data set. Essentially, some professors created this data set so that they can teach people how to use dashboards. So we have, let's see. So this is what I call a tidy format, right? So in the first column, the first row, you have all the variable names, and then each row is a different entry. So there are 21 variables and 302 rows. So you can go down here and see it. So 302 rows, so -1, so 301 data set. You got name, employee number, state, zip code, date of birth, age, sex, marital status, race, reasons for, what's this one? Reasons for term, employee status, department, pay rate, managers, positions. So kind of all the things you can expect from an HR data set. So we're going to take this data set and we're going to put it into the dashboard. Okay, the data set already exists because I've done this already, but just replace it. And it'll bring you to this screen. So it'll show you all the data that you have. You can select the ones that you want. Sometimes you might have to fix up the header. So sometimes you have to say, okay, header is row number 1, so it's right here. And this is a CSV file, so you'll see delimited here, but you have other ones, Excel file, XML file, and so on. So this data set's good as it is. I'm just gonna click Add Data. So it's just gonna upload and load the data into the file, the dashboard. So here is the dashboard. Right now it's blank because we haven't built anything into it. So what I'm going to do is first off show you the interface. So a really important thing to note, there's two main modes in Qlik. There's an edit mode and then there is a dashboard mode. So right now you can't really do much to it. So you have to click edit and then you can actually build a dashboard. So if you're building the dashboard, then you're generally in edit mode, but then when you're interacting with the data, then you're in dashboard mode. Or when a user who's like non-technical, they would generally interact with the dashboard mode. So editing. So first I'll go here and it shows you what sheets you have. So each application, there's multiple sheets. So we're on one sheet right now. We can name it sheet 1, HR data. We can do another sheet and this will be a different one. Sheet 2, HR data, and so on. So I'm just going to go to the first one. On the middle top here, we have data manager. So this is the back end. There's the data itself, and then there's storytelling. So this is kind of like a PowerPoint. We'll go through these individually in a bit. And then we have the settings, the menu here. So there's a app overview. So if you click on the app overview, it'll just show you the sheets that you have. I'll go back into the sheet. You have making the sheet public, download, duplicate, embed, touchscreen mode, and so on. Or you can go back to the hub. So within this sheet, first off, there's this thing called Insights. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but this thing is actually kind of wild. So on the left here, you can see all of the 21 variables in that data set. And you can ask this any question you want about the data set. So you can say, what is the average age of average age. Just say average age. And then you'll say, oh, okay, there's the average age. Okay, then you can say average age by department. See if that works. So you have the age of all the different departments. But that's not what we want. Or you can say something like average age. Oh, you can say age of employees. You got employee names. And you can see here you can interact with it. Pay rate. Pay rate. There we go. Anyways, you get the point. Pay rate by department. See if that works. So this thing isn't perfect. I think it's like an AI backend. So generally, I would still, oh, this works. So the pay rate by each of the department. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. And you can actually then say, okay, I want to add this to my sheet. So it actually does all the work for you already. So that's kind of cool. But we're going to do this the hard way, which is manually. Okay, so once you go into edit mode, you can see on the left here, there's fields, master item, charts, and custom objects. For the beginner class, I'm just going to talk about field and charts. So the field is essentially the variables. So all the 21 variables are here. And then we have the different type of charts. So bar chart, box chart, line chart. I have a slide in the PowerPoint that actually goes through all of these. But let's start with the easiest one, which is bar chart. It actually tells you what it is also, which is great. So you can drag it in, put it wherever you want. So I'm going to put this on the top right. Let's put this over here. And you can see here, for every single one of these charts on the left here, it'll ask you to input 0 to many dimensions and 0 to many measures. So a bar chart requires to have at least one dimension and one measure. So one dimension we can do, let's say department, and we can try to create the pay rate chart that we saw. So pay rate, and it'll ask you for aggregation. So in this case, we want to do average, and there's your average pay by department. You can click on the chart, and on the right here, there's a bunch of properties, so things you can change. So first off, let's name this. So pay rate average per department. And then you can say, okay, there's all the data, there's the dimension, there's the measure. Now I want to sort. So I want to sort, let's say, highest to lowest. So I can take this and drag it to the top. Now it's highest to lowest. You can click on it. You can say, okay, now I want to send it, sort it ascending, things like that. This pay rate is also in dollars. So I just want to take this and say number formatting is in money. Great. Add-on we'll ignore for now. And then appearance. So here's where you change the appearance. So there's the titles, subtitles, footnotes. That's all okay. Presentation, you can turn it sideways. You can have a scroll bar, value labels. So now you have all these value labels there, different colors. So let's say I want to color by dimension. Okay, now it's color by dimension. So it looks a little bit better now. And there's different ways to color things. And then x-axis, y-axis, and tooltip. So there's kind of a basic graph. Okay, so I just want to go back to our PowerPoint. Employees, labeling, changing data, sorting, colors. Okay, race. So let's add in actually another variable into this chart. So we can actually add in, let's say race description. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So I don't know if you saw. So I just took one of the variable and I just pop it in here, and it actually tells you all the entries in there. So race, and I can drag it here, and then now you can either replace the department, so replace the dimensions. You can add it, or you can add as a measure. Since race is a dimension, you can really add as a measure. You can color by. Let's see what color by. No, I don't think that'll work. You can add. Okay, so now you can see, I'll make this a little bit bigger. So different races. So admin office, there's Asian, white, African American. So it breaks it down. So it makes it a little bit easier than trying to do this in Excel. Let's say you want to do race and then departments. So you can do something like dragging these around. So now you have Asians and then different departments and so on. So super cool way to interact with your data. Cool. And then we'll do a time one. So on the left here, you can see actually there's these little icons. So essentially what happens is the program automatically recognize the dates as a date variable. So you can click on it and there's actually different options. So there's a ton of different things. You can break down week over week, year, month, just the year, just the month, things like that. So a lot of ways to interact with the date here. So let's say we want to make a line chart. Let's make this on the bottom here so it looks a little longer. And let's say we want to add year, month on hire. And then hire, date of hire. Yep. And let's do a sum. Right, so here's the sum of all the hires. Wait, no, sorry, not sum, count. There we go. See how you can actually very easily mix this up, sum, count, averages. Obviously, it's kind of weird, like you can really sum dates up. So kind of common mistake there. I wanted to count how many entries for that specific day on the year month. Okay, and then let's see. Combo chart. We'll do a bar chart. Okay, so let's do a combo chart. And let's do hire date and also termination date. So there is, where's the combo chart? There we go. Actually, no, let's go to the next page. So this is, remember, this is sheet one. I'm going to go to sheet two. So I just click on the right button here. Sheet two is still empty. So I'm just going to do a combo chart. I like combo charts. So I want to do the dimension as year month. And I want to also do year month of hires. So note that this actually shows the exact same information as that line chart, but just in bar chart. So if you remember, I said like a bar chart can show the information, sometimes just as well as the line chart, if not better. This is one of those times. Okay, now I also want to add in the date of termination. So now, you know, as a HR person, maybe I'm saying, okay, like, yeah, okay, we seems to have done a lot of hiring in the past between 2013 to 2016. I want to know how many terminations we've had. So I'm going to go to our field and then take date of termination, and then there's the year month. So we have to first off make sure the dimension's the same. I'm going to add this in and say add as a measure and count. So now here you can see like, okay, there's a line chart overlaying a bar chart and it looks kind of messy. So I don't want that. So I want to turn this into either a bar or a marker. So I'm going to click on this data here, which is the termination date under data. And I'm going to turn, see there's three different options here. I want to turn it into a marker. See, now you can see, okay, on March of 2015, there is 12 hires, but 1 termination. And you can see the y-axis on the left and the right is actually different. The left is the hires and the right is the termination. Okay, so actually I also want to do a stack for this one. So for the bar chart, let's see if we can do, yes, we can. Okay, so because there's 2 dimension here, you can actually stack these up. So if you click stacked, now you have the different races and then each one of those departments. So it's pretty awesome. I remember the first time I saw this tool, I was like, oh my God, this would have saved me so much time in Excel and R. Okay. Termination, we did that. All right, final touches. So there's a best practice for a dashboard. Generally, what I say is there shouldn't be more than 2 main graphics. So if you're, each sheet should have a theme. So this sheet should be, let's say, a specific theme. It could be pay rate by department. So I would do pay rate, and then I can do something else, another chart with pay rate. So maybe let's do that. Let's do pay rate across time. So I can look at pay rate, and I want to do an average pay rate. I can see here there's like 2 different. Yeah, so these things shouldn't be on the same axes because they're 2 different denominations. So I'm just going to take out the date of hire and then turn this into money. Here you go. Pay rate across time. Okay, so there's something interesting you can kind of see here. It seems like pay rate has been relatively stable. Okay, so usually what we say, best practice for a dashboard, we have 2 charts, and then we also include some KPIs. So I'm going to add a few different KPIs or tables for selection. So let's say department, and we'll do another department. Measure as a count. Oh. There we go. Okay, so see, we have all the number of employees per department. So that's kind of interesting. And then we'll do some KPIs. That here. Where are the KPIs? There it is. Okay, we'll do a KPI. Let's say average age. Not super interesting, but that's probably good for now. And then I'll keep that there. And I'm going to add a filter. So how do you want to filter this data by? Generally, a department would be a good one. And maybe you want to know the source of employee. So where the employee actually came from in terms of recruiting. So once you're done this, you're done, you click done editing, and this is your dashboard. So very quickly, in like 10 minutes, you can build a pretty cool dashboard. And if you have a very specific kind of question in mind, you can get that done really quickly. So the greatest thing about a dashboard is that you can interact with the data, right? So now you can, okay, look at this and you can say, okay, I want to look at the pay rates for Asians. And here you can see all the data will automatically update. African American, Hispanic, and so on. Okay. And then you can also see, okay, see all the data that update. So you can see here this table. You can see all the Asian workers across the different fields and the count there. Or you can say, okay, I only want to look at the production. Then you can see all the production staff and their pay across time, average age. And then you can say, okay, I want to look at only people that came in through diversity job fairs. Let's see, there you go, right? Okay, so a thing to know with Qlik, on the top here, this gray bar is the selection bar. So you can see here, I've selected employee sources diversity job fair. So you can clear the selection here. Or you can say production and another one of these filters. And you can see there's 2 selections. So you can clear one or add more in, whatever. And the cool thing is if you go to the next page, so we have our combo chart, these selections are still there. So you can actually click on it and so on. And then another cool things, you can interact with the dates. So you can actually select dates like this, move, right? You can only select a portion of the dates, or you can say, okay, I only want greater than 2014 data. I think this, because this is a year date for year month format, is not letting me do that. Okay. Cool. And then you can select the specific years. And that's the main thing I want to do for the demos. We did the search and selection. So selection, you can go into here, and it actually shows you all the data, and you can select anything you want. So for the date of hire, let's try that again. Greater than 2014, sorry, 01, 2014. There you go. Okay. So all the dates greater than January 1st, 2014, you'll make that selection. So if you unclick the selection, now you can see 2014 onwards. And you can do that with pretty much any of your variables. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the stories. So first off, bookmarking. A bookmark here basically allows you to put a bookmark on your dashboard. So what that means is it saves what selections you have so you can come back to it. So that's you have a very specific selection. So like 2014 onwards, everybody from the production team through monsters.com. So this is all the selection. You can bookmark it. So create bookmark, 1, 2, 3, say create. Okay, so it actually states in like code format what's happening here. So you can see here date format, date of hire equals that, departments equals that, so on. So then I can clear all these selections, and I can go to the bookmark again and click on it, and you'll show all those selections again. So you might not use this as much, but once you get more complex into your dashboarding, it's super useful. Okay, and then we'll go into the top right, which is storytelling. So storytelling is basically like a, what do you call it? PowerPoint slides. So you can build PowerPoint slides with these dashboards. So we have this thing called snapshots. You can add text. So I just want to say, double click to add text, slides number 1. Okay, let's add another slide. I want to add a sheet. So let's say I want to add sheet number 2. You can just put that in here. And you can do different alignments. You can do specific parts of these dashboards. So you can take this. I didn't say it. You can zoom in and zoom out, and you can right click on it, and you can do a ton of different stuff with it. You can see the data that's underlying. So and you can actually, how do I go back to chart? Okay, and then you can actually download the data in there as well. So you can download the image, download the PDF, download the data. All super useful. And what I want to do was take a snapshot. So I'm going to take a snapshot of this, and it'll show up in my snapshot library. So if I go to my story, then you can go to your snapshot library, and you can bring this in. And then when you actually play the slides, you can actually interact with the data itself, especially the sheets. Right, you can select it and make different selections and things like that, which is super useful, especially sometimes within a meeting, you have a PowerPoint slide, and then they'll say, oh, hey, can you actually segment out the data in this specific way? If you could do it live, that's pretty cool. You can definitely weld them with that. Taking snapshots. I did all that. Sharing the application. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. You can share you can create a share space and then invite a coworker, just like send them an email. You just put in their email and then you can share it, and then they can see the application. Loading the data. So this is the last thing we're gonna do today on Qlik, is we're gonna load in another data set. Actually. Okay, so we're gonna go to Data Load Manager. So I don't usually use this interface. This is more for non-technical people. If it loads, data load editor. Yeah, so usually I look at data load editor, which actually pulls the data through script. So you can actually do a lot of cool things with that. Here's the data model. So you can see here, there's the table that we have. You can have as many tables in here as you want. So I'm just going to refresh this. Tables, add data to your app. So I'm just going to add in a new data set. We did that already. So we have the core data, and then we have another data set called recruiting cost. So recruiting cost looks at the employment sources and then the costs month by month. So I'm going to join those two tables together. Looks like it's loading a little bit longer than usual. Ah, there you go. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to add more data. Place it. You can see the employee source. Okay, that's odd. It doesn't usually take this long. I will get back to everyone on that. You can see the data afterwards once it's loaded. I'm just going to move on. So yeah, essentially this is what was supposed to happen. So essentially you have your core data set. You can load in your data, and then you can load in the recruiting cost. And then automatically these two data set will associate through the employment source, and they will actually link the data together. And then final thing I want to show you guys is this thing called Qlik Branch, which has external open source data visualization. So you can actually, if there's any data visualization you want to do that doesn't exist on the main Qlik chart types, you can actually come here and say, okay, I want to do an organization chart. You can actually come here and look up different ones, and then, okay, maybe this looks interesting, centrality network graph. You can actually download these different ones. And you would download it, and then essentially you would come to the sheet, and then you can add it up onto custom objects. Yep, so that is all for today's class.